Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the second part of our flight here as we recreate a LAN Chile service from Santiago in Chile to Mount Pleasant in the Falkland Islands. We're starting today's episode and today's flight where we left off in the last episode, and that of course being the southern Chilean city of Punta Arenas. At the time of recording this video in January 2022, LAN Chile operated this service between Santiago and the Falkland Islands once a week on a Wednesday. The first sector of course being from Santiago down to Punta Arenas where we are now. A lot of passengers will of course leave the service here at Punta Arenas and some will be travelling on to Mount Pleasant. You can also book a flight from here in Punta Arenas across to Mount Pleasant in the Falkland Islands every Wednesday. As you can see here from SimBrief, it's a fairly short flight of just under 500 nautical miles. I've added extra fuel into the aircraft because I've set my alternate back here at Punta Arenas. At the end of the day, it's just over an hour's flight, and that is nothing for an Airbus A320. The calendar in Flight Sim has been set to January 2022 when I recorded this flight, and I'm running live weather from Active Sky. And as you can see, I'm using the stock scenery in prepared 3D version 4.5 for here in Punta Arenas. And I can only describe this as a pretty poor representation of the terminal building. But as I mentioned in the last video, this scenery would have been designed originally for FSX, so more than 12 years ago. To save time, as I do in all my videos, I've already programmed the simulator and the FMC. However, as what happens far too often in prepared, there was a runway change. Anyway, let's get on with the flight.
Captain, the cabin is secure. All passengers are aboard.
LAN Chile 907 is cleared to Mount Pleasant Airport and filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 7,000. Departure frequency is 12.3.9, squawk 3051. Taxi holding point for runway 30 via taxiway Charlie Alpha, runway 12, LAN Chile 907.
As I mentioned earlier, we were given a runway change on our departure here at Punta Arenas. And I have to admit that even using Progressive Taxi, I did use the runway map that is available within Navigraph, which on my sim setup is displayed on a second monitor. As I said on my last video when we landed here in Punta Arenas from Santiago, on board this very aircraft, watching the videos published by the real Airbus pilot in X-Plane, the default airports in X-Plane seem far superior to what is delivered here in prepared. And that's why over the years I've spent thousands of pounds, dollars and euros improving my flight sim experience with the addition of paid add-on scenery. But to be honest guys, I don't bother buying scenery for airports that I don't fly to too often. And in the 2.5 decades that I've been flying in Flight Simulator, I'm not sure that I've ever visited Punta Arenas before. Anyway, back to today's flight across to Mount Pleasant. As you can see, we're backtracking here on the runway, and I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about this flight to Mount Pleasant once we're into the sky.
One 100 feet remaining. On runway 30. Punta Arenas Tower, LAN Chile 907, ready to go, runway 30. IFR to Mount Pleasant. Land Chile, Niner 7. Cleared for takeoff, runway 30. Surface wind 57. Hit Niner. Cleared for takeoff, runway 30. Land Chile, Niner 7.
As I developed the 2022 schedule of flights for the channel, this will probably be the first of 3 flights we take on the channel down to Mount Pleasant in the Falkland Islands. Of course, 2022 is also the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict, when Argentina invaded this British territory in the South Atlantic, forcing the United Kingdom to retaliate to take the islands back thousands of miles away from home. 40 years on, tourism has become a key feature of the Falkland Islands economy. Cruise ships are now a common sight in the capital, Port Stanley, mainly going to and from cruises to the Antarctic. So in 2022, it is a lot easier getting to and from the United Kingdom and the Falkland Islands than it was in 1982. On this flight, you're only seeing one example, and that being the weekly service between Santiago and Mount Pleasant. I believe LATAM have recently announced weekly services from Argentina to Mount Pleasant and Sao Paulo in Brazil to Mount Pleasant. And there's also still the twice weekly service operated by the UK government from RAF Bryce Norton. And it will be this flight that I recreate here on the channel during my next series I'm calling Long Haul Domestic. So you know what to do if you want to continue to follow this channel as we recreate real world flights here in Prepared 3D and of course X-Plane.
I have some drink for you, Captain. Here you are.
As we descend towards flight level 170 or 17,000, we're overhead the South Island. And we're still talking to Argentinian ATC. I'm not sure this would be the case in the real world.
Descend and maintain altitude 7,000. Land Chile 907. Land Chile 907. North 62 miles southwest. Turn right heading 095. Expect sectors ILS. Runway 28. Approach. Turn right heading 095. Expect vectors ILS. Runway 28. Approach. Land Chile 907.
As you heard, we're being vectored on an ILS approach to runway 28 at Mount Pleasant. And this is probably a good time to tell you that the scenery that I have installed for Mount Pleasant Airport is freeware that I downloaded from AvSim. So while I set up for an ILS approach into runway 28, what I didn't realise at the time was that the ILS at this freeware scenery didn't work. So you're going to see an approach that is set up for ILS runway 28. Checking the Navigraph approach plates, everything looked fine in the configuration, but no ILS appeared on the primary flight display. If I'd been a professional pilot like the real Airbus pilot, who's probably going to kick my backside for this one, I should have abandoned the approach, come back around again, reprogramming for something like an RNAV approach into runway 28. Of course, being the rank amateur that I am, I didn't. Instead, I chose to hand fly this Airbus A320 from Aerosoft. So I'm afraid, guys, you're going to see another appalling approach by the Sunday pilot, this time at Mount Pleasant in the Falkland Islands.
Cleared to land. Runway 28. Land Chile 907.
One thousand.
Approaching 28.
Five hundred. 400. 100 above. Minimum 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. Retard. Retard.
Welcome to RAF Mount Pleasant in the Falkland Islands, and when I publish this video I'll be expecting a barrage of abuse from the real Airbus pilot for that landing. When I'm back here in a few weeks time flying the Airbus A330 of Air Tanker, I will try to remember the lack of an ILS to shoot a more professional but less exciting approach. Anyway, in the next video we're back in the Northern Hemisphere, way up north in Alaska no less, flying the PMDG 737-700 in the livery of Alaska Airlines on one of their more remote routes from Anchorage to Adak Island. So you know what to do if you want YouTube to advise you when that video is published. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and wherever you're flying in your virtual world, don't forget to fly safe.